Not a single military facility. Tonight, the Russians attacked only civilian infrastructure, logistics centers of Ukrainian companies, enterprises, and shops. In Kyiv and the region, as of this morning, 17 people have died and 44 have been injured. Air defense forces shot down 98 out of 115 enemy drones, but not a single one of the 28 ballistic missiles launched by the Russians was shot down, all because of the lack of interception capabilities. The highest number of casualties is in the Kyiv region. There are 16 dead there. Tomorrow has been declared a day of mourning in the region. More on the consequences of the shelling in Maria Vasilyeva's report.
Another night under Russian missiles against which there is no defense. A Nova Poshta sorting center in Kiev has been destroyed. The Russians used missiles with cluster munitions. As a result, 3 people died here alone and another 8 were wounded. The logistics center itself has been destroyed. The epicenter network logistics complex on the left bank of the capital burned to the ground. Another epicenter complex was destroyed in Kalinivka near Kiev. A company employee died there and 3 others were wounded. In addition to the warehouses, the missile strike caused significant damage to an epicenter tile production facility. On the right bank of the capital, warehouses of the Nova's grocery retail chain were destroyed. In the Kiev region, there were even more strikes than in the city. The Brovary district suffered the most, said Victoria Ruban, spokesperson for the State Emergency Service of the Kyiv region.
Liquidation efforts are ongoing in the Brovary and Bucha districts. Nevertheless, the Brovary district was under the heaviest enemy attack today. Here, rescuers worked at 4 locations. At the moment, all fires have been contained and liquidation is ongoing. There were also hits in the Bucha and Fastiv districts. At the moment, the fire in the Fastiv district has already been extinguished, while in the Bucha district, liquidation is still ongoing.
In the Brovary district, the largest warehouse of the Rosetka company was destroyed. But the most terrible thing happened at the railway platform of the Kvitneva station. There are 8 dead passengers here who were waiting for the train next to the logistics center, which was hit by Russian missiles, reported the head of the Brovary district, Vitaly Bihun.
The train was slightly delayed and people didn't make it to their last train. Currently, 8 deaths are known. We also have about 5 other major locations where logistics companies were hit, such as Fozzy Food. So this is food products. The enemy continues to strike at civilian infrastructure. Many residential buildings were damaged.
Meanwhile, a video has appeared online showing the simultaneous launch of 6 ballistic Iskander missiles from the Bryansk region, not far from the Ukrainian border last night. President Zelensky reported a total of 17 deaths in the capital region from the Russian attack. Another 44 people in Kyiv and the region were injured, all because Zelensky laments there is no defense against ballistic missiles. This is the price of delays in the supply of interceptor missiles from partners. Maria Vasilyeva, TSN 1+1.
As a result of today's missile attack, 2 distribution centers of the Silpo retail chain were also destroyed. 6 company employees were killed. Prime Minister Serhiy Koretsky wrote that he is convening an urgent meeting with business representatives. They will discuss how to ensure the operation of logistics companies and retail enterprises under the conditions of Russian missile terror. Last night in the Kyiv region, 78 objects were damaged, including 13 warehouse buildings, a production facility, 4 private households, a greenhouse farm, and 59 vehicles, the regional military administration reported. Rocket strikes during rush hour when people were commuting to work. The occupiers attacked Kharkiv again. Impacts were recorded in the private sector and on the territory of a civilian enterprise. In total, 11 people were injured, and it is a miracle that there were no casualties. TSN correspondent Yulia Boyko visited one of the attack sites. She will share all the details.
More bloody parcels from the invaders arrived in peaceful residential areas around 10 in the morning. Residents say they woke up to powerful explosions. Several districts shook.
It was somewhere around 10 in the morning. Well, I run out and shrapnel was hitting the roof. My wife found a piece of shrapnel not far from the window.
One of the strongest strikes hit the private residential sector. The missile exploded right next to a residential house. The large family lives there, however. At the moment of the impact, the people were not at home. That is what saved them. However, their neighbors were injured. The brick walls of this house were pierced through by missile fragments and the blast wave.
Grandma was outside, the glass flew past us, everything opened up, the door was blown out, everything in the world was destroyed. Shrapnel flew in all directions. It pierced the walls on the second floor, pierced the walls on the roof with shrapnel. The shrapnel is very large, big, and such that, well, there would be absolutely no chance of survival for anyone if, God forbid, they were to be at the epicenter of the explosion.
As a result of the morning attack, private houses, a civilian enterprise, and cars were damaged. 4 of the wounded were hospitalized with blast injuries, contusions, and burns. Due to damage to the power grid, thousands of families were left without electricity. Utility workers and rescue teams have been working on site all day.
All of the victims are in moderate condition. Fortunately, there were no severe consequences. Besides this, I want to say that our utility companies are currently working because the power grid is damaged and more than 2,000 subscribers are currently disconnected.
Power engineers promise to restore electricity as soon as possible. Yulia Boyko, Oleksiy Buhaenko, Kharkiv, TSN 1+1.
The enemy attacked the Odessa region again with strike drones. An enterprise was targeted. 1 person died and 8 others were injured. And since the morning, the Russians have been attacking Kherson with drones. There are already more than 10 wounded, including a nurse. The enemy hit the woman while she was waiting for a bus at a stop. In addition, the occupiers dropped explosives on a truck that was delivering groceries to a supermarket. They also shelled a residential high-rise building. And the day before, as a result of Russian shelling, 1 person died and another 18 were wounded. There are already 27 wounded in Kramatorsk in the Donetsk region. The youngest victim is 18 years old and the oldest is 76. The victims have blast injuries, limb amputations, and shrapnel wounds. The day before, the Russians dropped 2 aerial bombs on the city center, each weighing half a ton. One hit a high-rise building, the other landed right next to it. There is significant destruction in the city. 6 apartment buildings, 2 schools, a bank, a post office, shops, and infrastructure have been damaged. In Drushkivka, enemy shelling claimed the lives of 3 civilians. There was a hit on a high-rise building. 4 people were injured in Belenke. The number of people injured as a result of the strikes in Sumy has risen to 10. 4 more children and 2 women were brought to hospitals. The day before, I remind you, the Russians dropped 6 aerial bombs on the city, and at night the enemy attacked Trostianets with 19 drones. 2 men were wounded, 1 of them is in serious condition. Ukraine received 3 times fewer interceptor missiles this year compared to last year. The president announced the reduction in the supply of such necessary assets after a meeting with the military and called on partners to finally make political decisions to accelerate deliveries and production processes. At the same time, Donald Trump likely rejected Kyiv's request for the supply of 300 interceptors, which Zelensky may have asked for last week in Washington. This information was published by the Financial Times, citing sources. They explained the U.S. president's decision, in fact, by the shortage of these missiles in American stockpiles and the demand for ammunition in the Middle East. Sources from Reuters also confirmed the depletion of missile stocks, in particular ATACMS and Tomahawks. The sources for Reuters do not specify exactly how many units remain in the stockpiles, only emphasizing that Washington considers them critically important both for operations in the Middle East and for a potential confrontation with China. Other American media outlets, CNN and Bloomberg, also released data indicating that the U.S. may have used nearly 80% of its THAAD ballistic missile interceptor ammunition and about half of its Patriot system ammunition. Officially, the White House and the Pentagon assure that the U.S. Army has everything necessary to carry out its missions, and the defense industry is producing weapons at record rates. But Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth actually berated the journalists and called them liars. Moscow will increase ballistic missile strikes on Ukraine. To this end, a North Korean missile unit is being deployed in western Russia. It may consist of 6 launchers and 120 ballistic missiles. This is reported by Reuters, citing a representative of the main Directorate of Intelligence, Andriy Chernyak. According to him, the Russian command plans to station a missile unit of approximately 90 people from the DPRK in the Voronezh region within the structure of the 112th Missile Brigade of the Russian Armed Forces. Pyongyang has already transferred a new batch of 40 KN-23 and KN-24 type missiles to Russia, along with personnel. In September, Moscow and Pyongyang plan to finalize the details regarding the North Korean missile group in Russia. The world's reaction to this must be more than just diplomatic. If the launchers are deployed, they must be destroyed, stated the head of Ukrainian diplomacy, Andriy Sybiha. Regarding this risk, Kyiv will also be in contact with countries in the Indo-Pacific region, for whom the cooperation between Moscow and Pyongyang also poses a threat.
The GUR, if it shares such data, it usually comes true. We know about the interaction and the strengthening of this interaction between Moscow and Pyongyang. This cannot but cause concern because it also carries risks and threats for the Indo-Pacific region. And we are in contact here with our allies, such as Japan and South Korea, for whom this interaction creates real security risks. Undoubtedly, this means strengthening sanctions and further isolating the regime in Pyongyang